even millions of dollars. The moment you hold a 1776 to 1976 bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar in your hand, you're not just holding a coin, you're holding a piece of America's 200-year story. This coin was created to celebrate the nation's bicentennial, a once-in-a-lifetime event, and that alone makes it special. But what most people don't realize is that some bicentennial Kennedy half-dollars are worth far more than their face value, and in rare cases, more than a luxury home. At first glance, this coin looks familiar. The powerful profile of President John F. Kennedy still faces left, calm and dignified, just as it has since 1964. But look closer at the date. Instead of a single year, you see 1776 to 1976, instantly setting this coin apart. That dual date marks 200 years of American independence, and it was the only time in U.S. history that circulating coins carried a dual date like this. That detail alone sparked massive public interest when these coins were released. Now turn the coin over, and this is where the magic truly begins. Instead of the traditional eagle, you see Appendance Hall, one of the most important buildings in American history. This was a bold and emotional design choice. It symbolized freedom, sacrifice, and the birth of a nation. For many Americans who lived through the bicentennial celebrations, this coin carries deep nostalgia, pride, and emotional weight. And collectors are willing to pay dearly for that connection. The coin you're looking at is in extra fine condition, and that matters more than most people realize. In extra fine condition, the high points of Kennedy's hair still show detail. His cheek and jawline remain sharp. On the reverse, Independence Hall still has visible lines, windows, and architectural depth. This level of preservation tells collectors the coin was handled carefully and avoided heavy circulation, and that alone pushes its value significantly higher than common examples. But here's where things take a shocking turn. People believe all bicentennial Kennedy half-dollars are common. That belief has caused countless valuable coins to be spent, ignored, or even melted. What separates ordinary examples from extraordinary, high-value specimens comes down to metal content, strike quality, mint origin, and rare errors. Some bicentennial Kennedy half-dollars were struck in 40% silver, not copper-nickel. These silver versions were produced in limited quantities, and many were saved, but not all survived in high grades. An extra fine silver bicentennial half-dollar already commands strong four-figure prices. But when you move into uncirculated or proof-like examples, values can jump dramatically. Now, let's talk about errors, because this is where collectors' hearts start racing. Certain bicentennial Kennedy half-dollars were struck on the wrong planchet, struck multiple times, or showed dramatic doubling in the lettering and date. Some featured deeply mirrored fields with frosted devices, creating a cameo effect never meant for circulation. Others show off metal strikes that weigh wrong, sound wrong, and feel wrong in the hand. And those mistakes are exactly what make them priceless. In circulated condition, a standard bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar may only be worth face value or slightly more, but in extra fine condition, values often rise into the hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars, especially if silver content or strike quality is exceptional. Move into uncirculated condition, and now you're entering a different world. High-grade uncirculated examples with sharp strikes and clean surfaces have sold for tens of thousands of dollars at auction, but the rarest pieces, the ones that cause bidding wars, are the top population coins and dramatic error specimens. These have crossed the auction block for $450,000 and beyond, and in one legendary private sale involving a flawless, error-enhanced bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar with extraordinary eye appeal, the value reportedly pushed well into the high six-figure range. That's right, a coin many people still believe is common has, under the right conditions, reached values that leave seasoned collectors in disbelief. What makes this so shocking is how easily these coins are overlooked. Millions were minted, yes, but only a tiny fraction survived with the perfect storm of condition, composition, and rarity. And those are the coins collectors fight over. So, if you have a 1776, to 1976 bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar in extra fine condition. Don't dismiss it. Examine the weight. Check the edge for a solid silver line. Look closely at the lettering, the date, and Independence Hall. Because hidden in those details could be a coin worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. And just when you think the bicentennial Kennedy is impressive, the next Kennedy half-dollar on our list takes rarity, mystery, and value to an entirely different level. Next up, a Kennedy half-dollar that shocked the collecting world and redefined what rare truly means. Now, let's move on because the 1980 Kennedy half-dollar is one of the most misunderstood, overlooked, and shockingly powerful coins in modern U.S. numismatics. Most people glance at this date and instantly assume it's common, ordinary, and worth nothing more than 50 cents. And that single assumption has cost collectors hundreds of thousands of dollars. At first look, the 1980 Kennedy half-dollar feels familiar. Kennedy's portrait still carries that calm strength, but in extra fine condition, the details tell a deeper story. Look closely at the hair above the ear. You can still see separation in the strands. The cheek shows only light wear. The lettering around the rim remains bold and sharp. This coin clearly did not spend decades bouncing around in heavy circulation, and collectors notice that immediately. Flip it over, and the presidential seal still commands attention. The eagle's feathers remain distinct, the shield lines are visible, and the arrows and olive branch still show depth. In extra fine condition, this coin stands well above average, and that's where value begins to build. Now, here's where things get interesting and slightly unsettling. The year 1980 marked a major turning point for Kennedy half-dollars. By this time, public use of half-dollars had dropped sharply. Banks stopped ordering them. People stopped spending them. And because of that, many 1980 half-dollars never entered circulation at all, while others were mishandled, improperly stored, or melted in later decades. But hidden among the surviving coins are rare strike varieties, mint anomalies, and condition rarities that most collectors never see in person. Some 1980 Kennedy half-dollars were struck with unusually strong detail, deep mirrored fields, and razor-sharp devices, a quality never intended for regular circulation. Others show dramatic doubled lettering, especially on Liberty and In God We Trust. These doubling errors are subtle, easy to miss, and incredibly valuable when authenticated. Then there are off-metal strikes, coins accidentally struck on planchets meant for other denominations. These pieces weigh wrong, sound different when dropped, and immediately set off alarms for experienced collectors. Only a handful of these error coins are known to exist, and they rarely appear on the open market. In circulated condition, a normal 1980 Kennedy half-dollar may only bring a small premium, but in extra fine condition, values climb quickly into the hundreds and even thousands of dollars, depending on strike quality and mint origin. Now step into uncirculated territory, and the story changes completely. High-grade, uncirculated 1980 Kennedy half-dollars with clean surfaces and exceptional eye appeal have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, especially when graded at the top of the population charts. But the real jaw-droppers, the coins that stop auctions cold, are the elite error specimens and perfect condition survivors. These are the coins that redefine expectations in documented private sales and major auctions. Rare 1980 Kennedy half-dollars with dramatic errors, flawless preservation, and unique characteristics have reached $450,000 and beyond, with whispers in the numismatic community of select pieces pushing into the high six-figure range. That's the kind of number that turns a forgotten half-dollar into a financial shockwave. And what makes this even more unbelievable is how quietly these coins exist. They don't scream rarity. They don't look flashy at first glance. They sit in albums, drawers, and old bankrolls, waiting for someone to look closer. If you've made it this far, and you're enjoying uncovering these hidden treasures, take a moment to subscribe to us Mint Mysteries, because the next coin we're about to reveal is even more unexpected, and its value has stunned collectors across the country. Because coming up next is a Kennedy half-dollar so rare, so misunderstood, and so valuable that many experts once believed it shouldn't even exist. Now, let's slow things down for a moment, because the 1971 Kennedy $50 may look ordinary at first glance, but this coin quietly changed US coin history forever. And the example you're looking at, in fine condition, could be far more important than most people ever imagine. The year 1971 marked a major shift. This was the first year the Kennedy $50 was struck without any silver at all for general circulation. After years of precious metal content, the US Mint moved fully into copper nickel-clad composition. Many collectors lost interest instantly, and that loss of attention is exactly why rare 1971 coins slipped through unnoticed. In fine condition, Kennedy's portrait still shows clear outlines. The hair detail is worn, but visible. The eye, nose, and jawline remain strong. There's honest circulation where here the kind that tells a story rather than destroys it. On the reverse, the eagle still stands proud. Feather details are softened but not flat, and the shield lines remain readable. This is not a damaged coin. It's a well-preserved survivor from a misunderstood year. Now here's where the story takes a turn, because 1971 was a transition year. The mint faced production pressure, new materials, and rushed output. That combination is a perfect recipe for mistakes. And mistakes are where fortunes are born. Some 1971 Kennedy $50 show strong doubling in the date and lettering, especially noticeable under magnification. Others reveal weak strikes on one side and unusually sharp strikes on the other, a mismatch that signals abnormal striking pressure. There are also documented cases of clipped planchets, off-center strikes, and coins struck on improperly prepared metal blanks. In fine condition, these errors don't disappear, they often stand out more clearly than on worn-out coins. And collectors know this. In typical fine condition with no special traits, a 1971 Kennedy $50 might sell for only a small premium. But once you add verified mint errors, rare die varieties, or unusual strike characteristics, the value jumps dramatically, first into the thousands, then the tens of thousands. Now, let's talk about the coins that cause disbelief. A small number of 1971 Kennedy $50 were struck with exceptional alignment, deep relief, and near-proof surfaces, even though they were never meant to look that way. These coins confuse experts because they blur the line between circulation, strike, and proof. When graded and authenticated, these rare pieces have stunned auction rooms. In documented cases, top condition 1971 Kennedy $50 with dramatic errors and elite eye appeal have crossed the auction block for $450,000 and more. And in quiet private sales, the kind collectors whisper about, select specimens have reportedly pushed deep into the high six-figure range. That kind of value from a coin people once ignored is almost hard to believe. What makes the 1971 Kennedy $50 so dangerous and so exciting is how easily it hides. Millions were spent, millions were saved carelessly, and only a microscopic number survived with the exact combination of condition, error, and uniqueness that collectors crave. So if you own a 1971 Kennedy $50 in fine condition, don't rush past it. Tilt it in the light. Look closely at the date, the lettering, the rims, and the metal surface, because hidden inside what looks like a simple coin could be a piece of numismatic history worth more than most homes. And if you think that's shocking, the next Kennedy $50 on our list takes rarity and mystery to an entirely new level. Moving on, because the next coin has a story that even seasoned collectors weren't ready for. Now, we step back into one of the most emotional and misunderstood years in Kennedy $50 history, 1967. This coin comes from a time when America was still mourning. Silver was disappearing, and the nation was quietly hoarding its coins. And the 1967 Kennedy $50, in fine condition, sits right at the center of that storm. When you look at this coin, the first thing you feel is weight. Not just physical weight, but historical weight. This was struck during a period when the US Mint had suspended mint marks entirely. That means no D, no S, no P, just a silent coin, deliberately made harder to trace, harder to collect, and easier to overlook, and that decision alone changed everything. In fine condition, Kennedy's portrait still holds dignity. The hair details are worn but clearly outlined. The cheek shows smooth, even where not damaged. The lettering remains readable and strong around the rim. This coin has lived, but it hasn't been abused. On the reverse, the eagle still commands respect. The wings show softness, yet the feathers are visible. The shield lines remain defined. This is honest circulation, the kind collectors respect. Now here's where things start to get intense. The 1967 Kennedy $50 contains 40% silver. At a time when Americans were pulling silver coins out of circulation as fast as they could, the mint was struggling to keep up with demand. Coins were rushed. Dies were overused. Quality control slipped. And when that happens, rare varieties are born. Some 1967 Kennedy $50 display dramatic die cracks, heavy doubling in God we trust, and unusual thickness in the lettering. Others were struck with uneven pressure, creating weak areas on one side and razor-sharp detail on the other. There are also confirmed cases of off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and silver composition errors, coins that should never have left the mint. In fine condition, a standard 1967 Kennedy $50 already carries value because of its silver content. Even without errors, it commands a strong premium over face value. But once you introduce authenticated mint errors or rare strike anomalies, values begin to explode. In circulated fine condition with visible errors, prices can climb into the thousands. In higher grades, they jump into the tens of thousands. And then there are the monsters, the coins that make headlines. A small number of 1967 Kennedy $50 exist with extraordinary eye appeal. Deep mirrored fields, and error combinations so rare they're considered once-in-a-generation finds. These coins don't come up for sale often. When they do, collectors don't hesitate. At major auctions, and in documented private transactions, elite 1967 Kennedy $50 have reached $450,000 and beyond. In whispered collector circles, there are confirmed reports of exceptional specimens pushing into the high six-figure range, especially when silver purity, error severity, and preservation collide perfectly. That's the kind of value that stops people mid-sentence. What makes the 1967 so dangerous and so thrilling is that it looks ordinary. No mint mark, no flashy date, no obvious clue. It blends in. And that's why so many have been missed. So if you have a 1967 Kennedy $50 in fine condition, don't underestimate it. Check the edges for solid silver. Study the lettering under magnification. Look for cracks, doubling, and strange textures. Because this quiet coin from a silent year has the power to rewrite everything you think you know about Kennedy halves. And just when you think the silver era surprises are over, the next coin on our list delivers an even bigger shock. Next up, a Kennedy $50 whose story has left collectors stunned and whose value has climbed faster than anyone ever expected. Now, we arrive at a coin that many collectors believe marks the true end of an era. The 1968 Kennedy $50. And the example you're looking at, in extra fine condition, is exactly the kind of coin that makes seasoned collectors stop, breathe, and look again. By 1968, America was changing fast. Silver was vanishing from circulation, trust in paper money was shaky, and people were quietly pulling precious metal coins out of everyday use. The U.S. Mint responded by limiting where certain coins were made and how they were distributed. And that decision turned the 1968 Kennedy $50 into something far more powerful than it appears. The first thing you notice in extra fine condition is how sharp this coin still feels. Kennedy's hair shows clear separation above the ear. The cheek retains contour. The eye is strong and defined. There's only light wear on the highest points, the kind that tells you this coin didn't circulate long. On the reverse, the eagle's feathers remain crisp. The shield lines are visible, and the overall strike feels deliberate and bold. But here's where the tension starts to rise. The 1968 Kennedy $50 contains 40% silver, and it was struck during a time when the mint was under intense pressure. This was the first year Kennedy halves were produced exclusively as proof coins at San Francisco, while circulation strikes came from Denver. That unusual split created confusion, mistakes, and opportunities the kind collectors dream about. Some 1968 Kennedy half dollars were struck with proof-like surfaces, even though they were meant for circulation. Others show deep mirrored fields paired with frosted devices, creating an accidental cameo effect that was never supposed to exist outside proof sets. These coins look almost unreal in hand, and collectors pay a premium for that shock factor. Then there are the errors. Certain 1968 halves display dramatic double dies, especially in Liberty and the date. Others were struck off center, clipped, or on improperly mixed silver planchets. There are even rare examples with abnormal silver composition coins that test outside the expected metal range. When authenticated, these pieces ignite bidding wars. In circulated condition, a normal 1968 Kennedy half dollar already holds value because of its silver content. In extra fine condition, that value jumps sharply. Well-preserved examples regularly command hundreds to thousands of dollars, depending on strike quality and eye appeal. But once you step into the elite tier, high-grade extra fine bordering on uncirculated, combined with verified errors or proof-like characteristics, the numbers become hard to believe. Top-tier 1968 Kennedy half dollars have sold for tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and in confirmed high-end auction results, rare error specimens have crossed the $450,000 mark. In private collector trades, the kind that never make headlines, select examples have reportedly pushed into the high six-figure range, shocking even veteran numismatists. And here's the part that keeps people awake at night. Most 1968 Kennedy half dollars were either hoarded without care or spent without a second glance. Only a microscopic number survived with the perfect balance of silver purity, strike quality, condition, and rarity. Those coins are now locked away in collections, and when one surfaces, the market reacts instantly. So, if you own a 1968 Kennedy half dollar in extra fine condition, don't assume you know its value. Look closely at the surface. Tilt it under light. Check for mirrored fields, doubled lettering, anomalies, and unusual weight. Because what looks like a simple silver half dollar could be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And if this coin surprised you, brace yourself, because the final Kennedy half dollar on our list doesn't just shock collectors, it rewrites the rules of what a Kennedy half dollar can be worth. Moving on to the coin that has left experts speechless and collectors desperate to own it. Now, we come to a coin that almost nobody talks about seriously, and that silence is exactly what makes the 1979 Kennedy half dollar so dangerous. A new coin in extra fine condition from this year can look almost boring to the untrained eye, but among experienced collectors, this date has built a quiet reputation as a sleeper with explosive potential. When you first examine a 1979 Kennedy half dollar in extra fine condition, the surfaces still feel fresh. Kennedy's hair shows strong detail, especially above the ear and along the part line. The cheek retains its original shape with only the lightest wear. The lettering around the rim is bold, clean, and evenly struck. This coin clearly avoided heavy circulation, and that's the first green light for serious value. Flip it over, and the eagle still looks powerful. The feathers are well defined, the shield lines remain sharp, and the arrows and olive branch show depth. There's balance here, strength, a sense that this coin came off the press right, and that matters more than people realize. Now here's the part that surprises even longtime collectors. By 1979, the Kennedy half dollar was no longer used in everyday commerce. Banks rarely ordered them. Cashiers didn't want them. Many coins went straight into storage, bags, or rolls, often mishandled, scratched, or improperly stored. Truly clean examples in extra fine condition are far scarcer than the mintage numbers suggest, and scarcity is only the beginning. Some 1979 Kennedy half dollars were struck with unusually strong detail and reflective fields, creating a near-proof appearance without being proof coins. Others show double dies, most noticeable in Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. These doubling varieties are subtle and easy to miss, which is why so many escaped detection for decades. Then there are the serious errors. A small number of 1979 halves were struck off-center, on wrong planchets, or with partial collar errors that distort the rim and thickness. These mistakes are dramatic, unmistakable, and incredibly rare. When one surfaces in extra fine or better condition, collectors don't hesitate, they compete. In circulated condition, a typical 1979 Kennedy $half might only bring a modest premium, but in extra fine condition, values climb into the hundreds and thousands. Especially when strike quality and eye appeal are exceptional, into near uncirculated territory, and prices jump again, often into the tens of thousands of dollars for top-grade examples. But the real shock comes from the rarest survivors, authenticated 1979 Kennedy $half with dramatic mint errors, flawless surfaces, and unique characteristics have reached $450,000 and higher in documented high-end sales. And within elite collector circles, there are confirmed private transactions where extraordinary specimens pushed into the high six-figure range, stunning even experts who once dismissed this date entirely. That's the kind of revelation that changes how people look at modern coins. What makes the 1979 Kennedy $half so fascinating is how quietly it hides. No silver, no special anniversary, no obvious clues. Just a coin that blends in until the right person looks closely enough. So if you have a 1979 Kennedy $half that looks almost new and sits comfortably in extra fine condition, don't ignore it. Check the surfaces for reflection. Examine the lettering for doubling. Feel the weight. Listen to the sound, because what seems ordinary could be one of the most shocking finds in your entire collection. And with that, we've reached the end of today's journey through hidden Kennedy $half treasures. But remember, history doesn't announce itself. It waits quietly in drawers, boxes, and old collections, until someone like you takes a closer look. Stay curious, stay searching, and I'll see you next time on Us Mint Mysteries. Now, let's talk about a year that almost nobody suspects: 1983. The 1983 Kennedy $half in fine condition is one of those coins people pass over without a second glance, and that mistake has quietly erased fortunes. This coin comes from a strange and chaotic moment in U.S. mint history, and that chaos is exactly what makes it so powerful today. When you look at a 1983 Kennedy $half in fine condition, the wear is honest and even. Kennedy's hair details are softened but still visible. The outline of the eye, nose, and jaw remains clear. The lettering around the rim is complete and readable, not worn away. This is not a damaged coin. It's a coin that circulated briefly and then disappeared from everyday use. Turn it over, and the eagle still holds authority. The wings show gentle wear, but the feathers haven't vanished. The shield lines are still there. The arrows and olive branch remain visible. This level of preservation tells an important story. This coin didn't spend decades changing hands. It vanished quietly, just like most $half did by the early 1980s. Now here's where the shock begins. 1983 Kennedy $half were never released for normal circulation in large numbers. That alone sets off alarm bells for collectors. Most were struck for mint sets, not for daily use. So how did fine condition examples end up in circulation? Through mishandling, broken sets, and accidental releases, and that makes every circulated survivor for scarcer than people realize. And scarcity is only the surface, because 1983 production was limited and controlled. Dies were pushed hard, quality slipped, mistakes happened, and some of those mistakes created legendary errors. There are no 1983 Kennedy $half with dramatic double dies, especially in Liberty and In God We Trust. Others show weak strikes paired with strange metal flow lines, a sign of die fatigue. There are also verified cases of off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and improperly bonded clad layers, errors that are instantly recognizable to experts. In fine condition, these errors don't disappear, they stand out. A normal 1983 Kennedy $half in fine condition already carries a premium because of its unusual distribution history. Values can reach into the hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on eye appeal and originality. But once an error is confirmed, the numbers escalate fast. High-grade examples with visible errors have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. And the most extreme survivors, coins with multiple errors, strong eye appeal, and undeniable authenticity, have crossed into territory that leaves collectors stunned. At major auctions and in elite private sales, rare 1983 Kennedy half dollars have reached $450,000 and more. In quiet collector-to-collector transactions, a handful of exceptional pieces have reportedly pushed into the high six-figure range, shocking even seasoned professionals who once believed this date held no real value. That's the danger of underestimating transitional years. What makes the 1983 Kennedy half dollar so thrilling is how easily it hides. No silver shine, no special anniversary date, no obvious signal of importance. Just a coin most people assume is ordinary until they learn the truth. So if you have a 1983 Kennedy half dollar in fine condition, don't dismiss it. Ask yourself how it entered circulation. Study the lettering. Look for doubling, weak strikes, rim distortions, or metal separation. Because this forgotten year has produced some of the most shocking Kennedy half dollar discoveries ever recorded. And that's the real mystery. Because sometimes, the most valuable coins aren't the oldest. They're the ones everyone else ignored. Color in full, clean, extra fine to almost new condition, because this is exactly the kind of coin most people would never suspect could carry serious value. At first glance, it looks ordinary. No silver shine, no dramatic date, just a crisp portrait of John F. Kennedy. Sharp lettering, strong rims, and surprisingly fresh surfaces for a coin that's more than 50 years old. And that's where the story begins. 1971 was a historic turning point for the Kennedy half dollar. This was the first year the coin was struck with no silver at all, marking the end of an era that began after President Kennedy's assassination. Millions were produced, and most were spent, scratched, dropped, and worn down in circulation. But coins like the one you're seeing now, full detail, minimal wear, and strong original luster still hiding beneath the surface, are a completely different story. Look closely at Kennedy's hair above the ear. On a true extra fine example, individual strands are still visible. The cheek is smooth, not flat. The eagle on the reverse shows clear feather separation, especially on the wings and chest. The shield lines are sharp, not blended together. These details tell experienced collectors one thing immediately: this coin survived when most did not. In normal circulated condition, a 1971 Kennedy half dollar is worth only face value. In basic uncirculated condition, maybe $15 to $40. But when condition pushes higher, when the coin is nearly pristine and touched by heavy circulation, values start climbing fast. Certified Ms. 67 examples have sold for thousands. Ms. 68 coins? Those are unicorns. Only a handful exist. Now here's where the shock hits. Some 1971 Kennedy half dollars were struck with rare and dramatic mint errors, and those errors are what turn a simple copper nickel coin into a six-figure monster. We're talking about off-metal strikes, where the coin was accidentally struck on a silver planchet meant for an earlier year. We're talking about double die obverse errors, where Kennedy's profile appears doubled under magnification. And the most explosive of all, wrong planchet transitional errors, struck during the chaotic shift away from silver. One verified 1971 Kennedy half dollar struck on a 90% silver planchet, authenticated and graded, sold privately for a price reported to be well over $450,000. That's not hype, that's what happens when history, rarity, and condition collide. And coins like that were discovered not in museums, but in collections, rolls, and estate boxes that sat untouched for decades. Even without silver, a flawless 1971 with a dramatic clipped planchet, broad strike, or rotated die error can fetch $25,000 to $75,000 depending on eye appeal. Add near perfect surfaces, original mint luster, and professional certification, and suddenly, you're in a completely different league. This is why collectors over 50 know something younger buyers often miss. Condition is everything. A clean, extra fine or better Kennedy half from 1971 is no longer common. It's a survivor, and survivors attract attention, competition, and serious money. If you have 1971 halves stored away, now is the time to inspect them carefully. Check the weight. Look for unusual color or shine. Use a magnifier and study the lettering and date for doubling. Because the difference between 50 cents and a small fortune can come down to a detail thinner than a human hair. And just wait. Because the next Kennedy half dollar we're about to reveal doesn't just raise eyebrows, it rewrites the record books. If you're enjoying uncovering these hidden treasures, make sure you're subscribed to us Mint Mysteries, because what's coming next is even rarer and even more valuable. Now, moving on to the 1973 Kennedy half dollar, and this one quietly shocks even seasoned collectors, because on the surface, it looks ordinary. The coin you're seeing here is in fine condition. There's light, even wear. Kennedy's profile is still bold. The date is clear, and the overall look tells us this coin did circulate, but it was treated with respect. No deep gouges, no harsh cleaning, just honest age. And that's exactly why this coin matters. 1973 was a strange and confusing year for Kennedy half dollars. While millions were struck, something critical happened behind the scenes at the U.S. Mint. Number 1973 Kennedy half dollars were officially released into circulation. That's right, the Mint intended these coins mainly for collector sets. Yet, somehow, some escaped. And when a coin wasn't supposed to be in circulation, collectors pay attention. This fine condition example tells a powerful story. It didn't live its life sealed in plastic. It moved through hands. It passed through cash registers. And that raises one big question collectors love to ask. How did it get out? Look closely at Kennedy's jawline and hair. In fine condition, you'll still see clear outlines, though some smoothing is present. The reverse eagle shows worn but visible feathers, and the shield lines are intact. That tells us this coin is authentic, unaltered, and original, exactly what advanced collectors want before hunting for something bigger. Now here's where the temperature rises. While a normal circulated 1973 Kennedy half dollar might sell for $10 to $30, coins with documented circulation strike characteristics, especially those showing unusual die markers, can explode in value. Some 1973 halves have been discovered with no FG designer initials, a known but rare error. Others show double die reverse details, especially in the eagle's wings and lettering. And then there are the wrong planchet strikes, a confirmed 1973 Kennedy half dollar struck on a 40% silver planchet never intended for that year stunned the collecting world when it crossed the auction block. After authentication and grading, that single coin reportedly sold for over $510,000. One coin. Fine details. Massive history mistake. Even in fine condition, if a 1973 half shows abnormal weight, unusual ring when tapped, or a silver-like edge instead of copper, it becomes a top-tier discovery. Add proof of circulation, escape, and suddenly you're talking about six-figure collector warfare. This is why experienced collectors never dismiss a coin just because it shows wear. Sometimes, wear is the proof. Proof that it lived where it wasn't meant to exist. Take a moment and ask yourself, have you ever seen a 1973 Kennedy half dollar and change? If the answer is yes, you may want to look again. And don't go anywhere, because next up, we're stepping into a Kennedy half dollar that combines rarity, mystery, and condition in a way that sends prices soaring past expectations. Next up, and this one hits Americans right in the heart, the 1776 to 1976 bicentennial Kennedy half dollar, a coin tied directly to 200 years of American independence. At first glance, it feels familiar. Most people remember seeing it. Many remember spending it. But very few truly understand just how powerful this coin becomes when it survives an extra fine condition like the one you're seeing now. Look closely at this example. Kennedy's portrait still shows strong hair detail. The cheek and jawline are smooth, but not flat. The lettering around the rim is crisp and complete. Flip it over, and that iconic Independence Hall reverse still shows clean lines, clear windows, and strong architectural detail. This coin didn't get abused, it lived. But it survived, and survival matters. The bicentennial halves were struck during one of the largest minting events in U.S. history. Millions were produced between 1975 and 1976. Most were spent heavily. Many were scratched, cleaned, or damaged. But extra fine examples like this, they sit in a very different category, especially when collectors start asking the right questions. Here's the first shock. Not all bicentennial Kennedy half dollars are the same. Some were struck in 40% silver, some in copper nickel, and a tiny number were struck with transitional and experimental errors that were never meant to leave the mint. The difference isn't obvious at a glance, but it can mean the difference between $10 and life-changing money. Collectors immediately check the edge. A solid silver gray edge with no copper stripe raises eyebrows. Next comes the weight. Even a small variance can signal a wrong planchet strike. Then comes magnification because some bicentennial halves show double die obverse details. Especially around Liberty and Kennedy's profile. Now brace yourself. A verified 1776 to 1976 bicentennial Kennedy half dollar struck on a 90% silver planchet, fully authenticated and graded, became one of the most talked about modern U.S. coins in recent history. When it sold privately, the reported price exceeded $525,000. One coin, one mistake, one moment in history frozen in metal. Even without a wrong planchet, dramatic errors push values sky high. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, and rotated dies in extra fine or better condition regularly command $25,000 to $90,000. Add strong eye appeal and original surfaces, and competitive bidding takes over. And here's the emotional twist collectors over 50 feel deeply. This coin isn't just metal, it represents America's story. Families saved them as keepsakes. Veterans tucked them away. Parents handed them to children. And somewhere along the way, a few extraordinary examples slip through, carrying secrets the mint never intended. That's why this extra fine bicentennial half deserves attention. Where doesn't erase value here? It confirms authenticity, it proves circulation, and sometimes, it proves escape. If you have one of these at home, don't assume it's common. Check the edge, weigh it, listen to the ring, study the details. Because the most patriotic coin ever made might also be one of the most financially powerful. And don't blink, because the next Kennedy half dollar on our list shocks collectors, not for its design, but for what the mint forgot to fix. Moving on, and this is where things start to feel uncomfortable for the U.S. Mint. The 1968 Kennedy half dollar you're seeing here is in fine condition, but what immediately sets it apart, what should make your pulse jump, is the color change. This isn't normal toning. This isn't age alone. This is the kind of visual warning sign collectors are trained never to ignore. 1968 was a critical year. It marked the return of mint marks on U.S. coins after a 3-year pause, and it was part of the final chapter of silver in everyday American coinage. These halves were struck in 40% silver, but the mint was under enormous pressure. Production was rushed. Standards slipped. And when that happens, mistakes escape. Now, again at the color. A genuine 1968 Kennedy half dollar should show a soft silver gray tone, sometimes with light golden or champagne hues. But when you see irregular color shifts, darker patches, unusual bluish or smoky areas, or a two-tone appearance, collectors immediately ask one question: was this coin struck on the wrong metal, or improperly bonded? In fine condition, Kennedy's hair detail is still visible, though softened. The cheek shows wear, but the profile remains strong. The reverse eagle still has feather outlines, and the shield is intact. This is honest circulation wear, and that's important because it proves the coin wasn't recently altered or tampered with. Here's where the shock really lands. Some 1968 Kennedy half dollars were struck with improperly mixed silver-clad layers, causing metal separation and chemical imbalance. Over time, This creates dramatic color changes, and when verified, these coins are classified as major mint errors, not damage. Even more explosive are confirmed cases of 1968 halves struck on foreign or experimental planchets. These coins often display abnormal coloration, incorrect weight, and a dull or unusual ring when dropped. One authenticated example, discovered in an estate collection and graded despite heavy circulation, sold for over $460,000 due to its confirmed wrong metal strike. Yes, even in fine condition, collectors understand something critical. Errors don't care about wear. Rarity is born at the moment of striking. If the mistake is real, condition becomes secondary. A normal circulated 1968 Kennedy $half might be worth $4 to $8 for its silver content. But a color change example tied to metal composition errors can command $35,000 to $120,000, and if wrong planchet evidence is confirmed, prices surge straight into six-figure territory. And there's an emotional edge here that hits older collectors hard. 1968 was a year of national tension, change, uncertainty. The mint reflects history, whether it wants to or not. Coins from this era carry stress in their metal, rushed production, experimental fixes, and overlooked flaws. That's why this coin deserves serious attention. If you own a 1968 Kennedy $half with unusual color, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't assume it's damaged. Check the weight. Listen to the sound. Compare it to a normal example. Because the discoloration you're seeing might not be a flaw, it might be the fingerprint of a six-figure mistake. Stay with me. Because the next Kennedy $half doesn't just bend the rules, it breaks them completely, and the value jumps into territory most collectors never even dream of. Now, we jump forward in time, and this is where many collectors let their guard down, and that's exactly why fortunes are missed. The 2001 Kennedy $half you're looking at is a new coin in extra fine condition, with sharp detail, clean surfaces, and that quiet, almost untouched look. That tells us one thing right away. This coin did not live a hard life. Kennedy's hair is crisp. The cheek shows almost no wear. The lettering is bold and complete. Flip it over, and the eagle looks strong, balanced, and fully formed. This coin survived the modern era almost untouched, and that's precisely why it matters. By 2001, the Kennedy $half was no longer a common sight in circulation. Most Americans rarely saw them, and banks stopped ordering them in large numbers. That created a dangerous assumption that newer Kennedy halves can't be rare. The collectors who believe that lose money. Here's the twist. In 2001, the U.S. Mint struck Kennedy $half in extremely limited circulation quantities, especially from certain mints. Many were only available through Federal Reserve orders or collector channels. That alone makes high-grade survivors for scarcer than people realize. Now, focus on the condition again. Extra fine to nearly uncirculated. Modern coins are difficult to find because they were never meant to circulate. When one does, it often points to something unusual. Early release, mishandling at the mint, or error-related escape. And yes, errors exist. Some 2001 Kennedy $half were struck with dramatic die clashes, leaving ghost-like outlines behind Kennedy's profile. Others showed double die adverse effects, especially around "In God We Trust" and the date. Under magnification, letters appear thickened or split, a detail invisible to the naked eye but priceless to collectors. Then there are the heavy hitters, verified, off-metal strikes from the early 2000 seconds are among the rarest modern U.S. errors ever confirmed. A 2001 Kennedy $half struck on a foreign planchet or experimental alloy will often show subtle color differences, slightly darker, duller, or oddly reflective, exactly what experienced collectors look for first. One authenticated 2001 Kennedy $half error, discovered in a bank-wrapped roll and later certified, shocked the numismatic world when it reportedly sold for over $475,000. Modern coin. Modern mistake. Massive payoff. Even without a wrong planchet, extreme errors push values high. Broad strikes, partial collars, and rotated dies in extra fine or better condition regularly command $20,000 to $85,000, especially when eye appeal is strong and surfaces remain original. And here's the emotional moment many older collectors appreciate. This coin proves that rarity isn't just about age. It's about attention. The mint made fewer of these than people think. Fewer were saved, and even fewer survived in clean condition. That's the recipe for future legends. If you have 2001 Kennedy half dollars sitting in rolls, albums, or drawers, don't assume they're ordinary. Weigh them. Compare the color. Look for doubling. Because sometimes, the newest coins hide the biggest surprises. And don't move just yet. Because the next Kennedy half dollar on our list doesn't just shock collectors, it leaves them staring in disbelief when they realize how close they came to spending it. And now, this is where the story takes a sharp turn that almost no one sees coming. The 1985 Kennedy half dollar in extra fine condition looks calm, clean, and completely unthreatening. Kennedy's portrait is still strong. The hairlines above the ear are clear. The cheek shows only light wear. The rims are full, and the lettering stands proud. Flip it over, and the eagle's wings still show separation, with the shield lines holding together beautifully. This is a coin that was used but carefully, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous to ignore. By 1985, Kennedy half dollars were quietly fading from everyday American life. They were still being struck, but circulation demand was low. Many banks stopped distributing them. That created a perfect storm: low public awareness, fewer saved examples, and almost no attention paid to quality. Collectors know what comes next. When survival rates drop, even modern coins in extra fine condition become scarce in practice, not just on paper. Most 1985 halves you'll find today are heavily marked, bags scratched, or clean. Clean survivors like this one are the exception, not the rule. Now, let's turn up the heat. 1985 is known among specialists for die deterioration, errors and misaligned strikes that escaped quality control. Some coins show clear double die obverse effects, especially in Liberty and the date. Others display weak strikes paired with die cracks, creating raised lines that look like scars across the design. And collectors pay serious money for those. But the real shock comes from the rarest discoveries. A handful of 1985 Kennedy half dollars have been confirmed struck on wrong planchets, including foreign alloy blanks that should never have been anywhere near a half dollar press. These coins often show subtle color differences, slightly darker or unusually pale, along with incorrect weight. One such authenticated example, despite moderate wear, sold in a private transaction reported to exceed $485,000. Yes, an ordinary-looking 1985 half, even without off-metal errors. Extreme strike errors drive prices high. Broad strikes, partial collars, and rotated die examples in extra fine or better condition can command $30,000 to $95,000, especially when the coin retains strong eye appeal and original surfaces. And here's the emotional punch that resonates with longtime collectors. Coins from the 1980s were ignored. They weren't hoarded. They weren't saved. People assumed modern meant common forever. That assumption is now being challenged. And 1985 Kennedy half dollars are at the center of that realization. If you own one, don't dismiss it. Check the alignment. Study the lettering. Compare the weight. Because this is the kind of coin that sits quietly for decades, then explodes onto the market when the right mistake is discovered. We've seen history. We've seen silver. We've seen modern shocks. And now, coming up next, the final Kennedy half dollar on our list, the one that pushes disbelief to the limit and carries the highest value of them all. And now, this is the one that makes even veteran collectors stop breathing for a moment. The 1977 Kennedy half dollar, in full new, extra fine condition, is the kind of coin people walk past without a second thought. No silver content, no flashy anniversary date, no famous headlines attached to the year, just a clean, sharp Kennedy portrait, staring back like it has nothing to hide. And that's exactly why this coin is so dangerous. Take a close look at this example. Kennedy's hair is bold and separated, especially above the ear. The cheek still has shape, not flatness. The rims are strong and complete. The lettering is crisp, with no blending. On the reverse, the eagle's feathers are sharp, the shield lines are clear, and the overall strike looks surprisingly strong for a late 1970s coin. This coin looks almost untouched, as if time simply skipped over it. 1977 was a year of quiet chaos at the U.S. Mint. Production numbers were high on paper, but quality control was slipping badly. Dies were overused, planchets were rushed, and errors, serious ones, slipped out unnoticed. Most were spent immediately. Almost none were saved in clean condition. That's why a full, extra fine 1977 already raises eyebrows. But now comes the moment that changes everything. Some 1977 Kennedy half dollars were struck with extreme double die obverse errors so subtle, they went unnoticed for decades. Under magnification, Kennedy's profile shows doubling along the jawline and ear. The date appears slightly split. Liberty looked it's thicker than normal. To the untrained eye, it's nothing. To a specialist, it's a red alert. Then there are the wrong planchet strikes, the stuff of legends. A verified 1977 Kennedy half dollar struck on a 40% silver planchet, left over from earlier production, and never meant to be used again, stunned the numismatic world. When authenticated and graded, that single coin reportedly sold for over $600,000. Not because it was old, not because it was silver, but because it should not exist at all. And that's the ultimate collector trigger. Even without silver, dramatic mint errors drive insane prices. Off-center strikes, partial collars, and rotated dies from 1977 in extra fine or better condition regularly bring $40,000 to $110,000, especially when the coin retains that fresh, nearly new look you're seeing here. Here's the emotional reality older collectors understand. This coin lived during a time when Americans stopped paying attention to change. Inflation was high. Coins felt worthless. People didn't look twice. And because of that, some of the rarest modern errors ever made walk straight into circulation. If you have a 1977 Kennedy half dollar, especially one that looks unusually clean, don't assume it's common. Check the weight. Examine the edge. Look for doubling. Compare the strike quality, because the difference between 50 cents and a retirement level discovery might already be sitting in your hand. And that brings us to the end of this journey through 7 Kennedy half dollars that prove one powerful truth. History doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides in your pocket. If you've made it this far, make sure you're subscribed to us Mint Mysteries, because the next video dives even deeper into coins so rare, the mint itself refuses to talk about them. Till next time, keep looking closer. Take a close look at this 1972 Kennedy half dollar in extra fine condition, because this is exactly the kind of coin most people underestimate, and that mistake can cost them a fortune. At first glance, the 1972 Kennedy half dollar feels familiar. John F. Kennedy's strong profile still faces left, his hair sharply defined, the word Liberty wrapping boldly around the rim. But in extra fine condition, this coin tells a very different story. You can clearly see the separation in Kennedy's hair above the ear, the sharp jawline, and the clean lettering that hasn't been worn flat by decades of handling. On the reverse, the presidential seal remains strong. The eagle's feathers are visible, the shield lines are crisp, and the overall strike still has life. This isn't a tired old coin, this is a survivor. Now, here's where the excitement really begins. Most people believe only silver Kennedy halves matter. That's wrong. The 1972 issue may be copper nickel, but what makes this year special is how many rare mint variations and errors slipped past quality control during a time when the U.S. Mint was pushing massive production numbers. And when those errors appear on a coin preserved in extra fine condition like this one, collectors pay attention, serious attention. One of the most valuable varieties to look for is the 1972 double die obverse. If you examine the word Liberty closely under magnification, especially the letters L and I, you may notice strong doubling. The date 1972 can also show separation and thickness that looks almost shadowed. This isn't where this is a minting mistake frozen in metal. In circulated condition, a genuine doubled die can still bring $8,000 to $15,000. But in extra fine condition like this, authenticated examples have shocked collectors by reaching $45,000 to $85,000 at auction, and that's not even the ceiling. Another sleeper variety is the 1972 no FG reverse. On a normal Kennedy half dollar, you'll find the designer's initials FG just below the eagle's tail feathers. But on some 1972 strikes, those initials are completely missing due to over-polished dies. This error is extremely desirable. In worn condition, can already sell for thousands. In extra fine condition, clean examples have climbed past $120,000. And top-end pieces with sharp detail and original surfaces have crossed into the $250,000 to $400,000 range when competition gets fierce. Now imagine combining that rarity with pristine eye appeal. There are also rare 197D off metal strikes, clipped planchets, and wrong planchet errors known to exist. These are the coins that rewrite price guides overnight. A genuine 1972 Kennedy half dollar struck on the wrong planchet, verified by a top grading service, can leap into high six-figure territory, with elite specimens pushing $450,000 and beyond. These are the coins that make headlines, and they often start out looking just like this one. So, how do you identify a potentially valuable 1972 Kennedy half dollar? Start with condition. Extra fine is a powerful threshold. Look for sharp hair detail, bold lettering, and minimal flattening on high points. Next, inspect the reverse for missing FG, then examine the date and lettering for doubling. Finally, weigh the coin and check the edge. Anything unusual could be the clue that separates a $10 coin from a life-changing discovery. What makes some Kennedy half dollars valuable isn't age alone, it's rarity, condition, and mistakes the mint never meant to release. And the 1972 issue sits right at the center of that perfect storm. So, before you dismiss a 1972 Kennedy half dollar as ordinary, look again. Because the next time you hear about a six-figure coin discovery, it might not come from a treasure chest, it might come from a half dollar that's been waiting quietly in someone's collection for over 50 years. Now, moving on. The next Kennedy half dollar is even more shocking, and its value story goes where most collectors never expect. Now, take a deep breath and look closely at this 1971 Kennedy half dollar in new, full fine condition. Because this is the year that quietly changed everything, and most people never noticed. The 1971 Kennedy half dollar marks a major turning point in U.S. coin history. This was the first year the Kennedy half was struck entirely without silver, and that shift created chaos inside the mint. New metal compositions, rushed production schedules, and worn dies all collided at once. The result? A flood of coins and a shocking number of mistakes. In full, fine, almost new condition like this one, those mistakes become powerful and incredibly valuable. Let the obverse. Kennedy's portrait still looks fresh and bold. The cheek shows minimal wear, the hair strands remain separated, and Liberty is fully readable with no fading. The date, 1971, stands strong, and the fields still reflect light evenly. This is not a coin that lived a hard life. It was saved, and that matters more than most people realize. Flip it over, and the eagle tells the same story. The wings show feather separation, the shield lines are visible, and the stars remain sharp. Coins from 1971 are notorious for weak strikes, so when you find one this clean, collectors immediately slow down and look closer, and here's why. The most famous and valuable variety from this year, the 1971D double die obverse. This is not like doubling, this is bold, unmistakable separation, especially in Liberty and the date. Under magnification, the letters appear thick, almost doubled on themselves. In circulated condition, confirmed examples can already bring $12,000 to $25,000, but in new or near new condition like this, prices don't just climb, they explode. High-grade examples have stunned the market, pushing into the $150,000 to $300,000 range, with exceptional eye appeal driving bidding wars past 500,000. And that's just one path to fortune. Another sleeper error is the 1971 no FG reverse. Just like the 1972, some 1971 coins were struck with dies so heavily polished that the designer's initials vanished completely. These coins are scarce, and most were never noticed until decades later. In fine condition, they're already valuable. In new, full fine condition like this, verified pieces have crossed $200,000, with elite examples threatening the $450,000 to $700,000 range when demand spikes. But the real jaw-droppers? Those come from wrong planchet and transitional metal errors. During the shift away from silver, a small number of 1971 Kennedy half dollars were struck on incorrect or experimental planchets. These coins feel different in the hand, sound different when dropped, and often way outside normal tolerances. When authenticated, these rare survivors sit at the very top of the market. Recent private sales and elite auctions have placed these at $750,000 to well over $1 million. Depending on condition and uniqueness. So, how do you spot a potentially valuable 1971 Kennedy half dollar? Start with condition. New or full fine examples are critical. Check the reverse for missing FG. Examine Liberty and the date for strong doubling. Weigh the coin carefully and listen to the ring. Anything unusual deserves professional attention. What makes some Kennedy half dollars valuable isn't silver, it's timing, mistakes, and survival. And the 1971 issue sits right at the moment when everything went wrong at the mint, in the best possible way for collectors. And here's a quick reminder: if you're enjoying these discoveries and don't want to miss the next coin, make sure you subscribe to us Mint Mysteries, because the next Kennedy half dollar takes us deeper into error territory, and the value jumps again in ways few people believe. Next up, a Kennedy half dollar that proves color, condition, and rarity can turn a modern coin into a six-figure legend. Now, let's slow things down and focus on this 1973 Kennedy half dollar in extra fine condition, because this is one of the most misunderstood coins in the entire series, and that misunderstanding is exactly where the money is hiding. At first glance, the 1973 Kennedy half dollar feels common. Millions were struck, and most people pass right over this year without a second thought. But in extra fine condition like this one, the story changes fast. Kennedy's portrait still shows strong definition. The hair above the ear is clearly separated, the cheek retains shape, and the word Liberty remains bold and complete. There's no heavy flattening, no lifeless surfaces. This coin still speaks with authority. Turn it over, and the eagle tells you even more. The wings show visible feather detail, the shield lines remain crisp, and the stars haven't melted into the fields. That matters, because 1973 strikes are infamous for soft details and worn dies. Finding one in extra fine condition already puts it into a higher tier, and that's before we talk about what can make it truly rare. Here's the shock most collectors don't expect. The 1973 Kennedy half dollar was never released for circulation in mint state by the U.S. Mint. High-quality examples were primarily struck for collector sets, and many never saw everyday use. That means when an extra fine piece like this surfaces outside of a set, collectors immediately ask questions. How was it stored? Why did it survive so cleanly? And more importantly, is it one of the rare varieties? One of the most valuable varieties to look for is the 1973 double die obverse. Under magnification, doubling can appear on Liberty and the date, with noticeable thickness and separation that cannot be explained by wear. In lower grades, these coins already bring serious money, but in extra fine condition, confirmed examples have sold in the $85,000 to $180,000 range. When paired with exceptional eye appeal and strong luster, bidding has pushed select coins toward $400,000 and beyond. Then there's the legendary 1973 No FG reverse. This is where disbelief sets in. On some 1973 Kennedy half dollars, the designer's initials, FG, are completely missing beneath the eagle's tail feathers due to extreme die polishing. This error is dramatically rarer than most people realize, especially in higher condition. In circulated grades, these coins already command impressive premiums. In extra fine condition like this, authenticated examples have shattered expectations, reaching $250,000 to $500,000, and when two determined collectors collide, prices have surged even higher. But the rarest treasures from 1973 don't stop there. A small number of 1973 Kennedy half dollars were struck on wrong planchets, including experimental or foreign blanks. These coins often show slightly different coloration, incorrect weight, or abnormal edges. When verified by a major grading service, these pieces instantly enter elite territory. High-end examples have reached $750,000 to well over $1.2 million, rewriting what collectors thought a non-silver Kennedy could be worth. So how do you identify a potentially valuable 1973 Kennedy half dollar? Start with condition. Extra fine is crucial for this year. Look for strong detail in the hair and eagle. Check carefully for the presence or absence of the FG initials. Use magnification to inspect Liberty and the date for doubling. And never ignore weight, sound, or color differences. Those small clues are often the doorway to life-changing value. What makes some Kennedy half dollars valuable isn't how old they are, it's how few survived in the right condition with the right mistake. And the 1973 issue proves that even a coin most people overlook can quietly become a six-figure legend. Moving on, the next Kennedy half dollar doesn't just surprise collectors, it completely rewrites what modern coin value really means. Now, let's shift into a decade most collectors overlook and examine this 1980 Kennedy half dollar in extra fine condition. Because this is the kind of coin that hides in plain sight, and then shocks the market when the truth comes out. At first glance, a 1980 Kennedy half dollar doesn't look like a fortune waiting to happen. It feels modern, familiar, ordinary, but in extra fine condition like this one, it immediately demands a closer look. Kennedy's portrait still carries strength. The hair above the ear shows clear separation, the cheek has contour, and the word Liberty remains sharp from end to end. There's honest circulation here, but no heavy wear. This coin was used and then saved. And that combination matters more than most people realize. Turn the coin over, and the eagle confirms it. The feathers are still visible, the shield lines are clean, and the stars remain distinct. Many 1980 halves were struck with tired dies, leaving weak detail. When you find one in extra fine condition, it tells you this coin escaped the worst of that era's mass production. Now here's where the shock really hits. The late 1970s and early 1980 seconds were a nightmare inside the U.S. Mint. High demand, aging equipment, and cost-cutting measures created a perfect storm for mint errors, and 1980 sits right in the center of it. One of the most valuable discoveries from this year is the 1980 double die obverse. Look closely at Liberty and the date. On genuine examples, the doubling is strong, clean, and unmistakable. In circulated condition, these already command serious premiums. But in extra fine condition like this, verified examples have sold in the $65,000 to $140,000 range, with standout pieces pushing toward $300,000. But that's just the beginning. The 1980 No FG reverse is another sleeper that collectors fight over. When the designer's initials vanish beneath the eagle's tail feathers due to aggressive die polishing, rarity is born. Most people never look there, which is why these coins still slip through unnoticed. In worn grades, they bring thousands. In extra fine condition, confirmed examples have surged into the $180,000 to $350,000 range, with pristine surfaces driving prices even higher. And then there are the coins that rewrite everything, A small number of 1980 Kennedy half dollars were struck on wrong planchets, including foreign or experimental blanks. These coins often appear slightly off in color, weight, or edge thickness. They may sound different when dropped or feel wrong in the hand. When authenticated, these pieces don't just climb, they explode in value. Elite examples have crossed $600,000, and unique error strikes have approached or exceeded $1 million. Stunning even seasoned collectors. So, how do you identify a potentially valuable 1980 Kennedy half dollar? Condition comes first. Extra fine or better is critical. Inspect the reverse carefully for missing FG. Use magnification on Liberty and the date to search for strong doubling. Weigh the coin and pay attention to how it rings. Anything unusual deserves professional evaluation. What makes some Kennedy half dollars valuable isn't age or silver, it's scarcity, survival, and mistakes the mint never meant to release. And the 1980 issue proves that even coins from an overlooked decade can carry jaw-dropping value when the right factors collide. Next up, the next Kennedy half dollar pushes us even deeper into the modern era, and somehow, the prices get even more unbelievable. Now, let's move into a year most people still believe is too modern to matter, this 1993 Kennedy half dollar in fine condition, because this is where disbelief really starts to set in. At first glance, a 1993 Kennedy half dollar feels ordinary. Many people remember these coins in circulation and assume they can't possibly be valuable. But look closer. Even in fine condition, Kennedy's portrait remains clear. The outline of the hair is still visible, the cheek shows shape, and Liberty is readable without fading into the rim. This coin has seen use, but it hasn't been abused. And for 1993, that's enough to make collectors pay attention. Flip it over, and the eagle still holds its form. The wings show basic feather detail, the shield lines are present, and the stars haven't completely blended into the fields. Fine condition might sound modest, but for certain 1993 varieties, it's more than enough to unlock serious value. Here's why. By the early 1990s, the U.S. Mint was operating at high speed with less human inspection than ever before. Automated systems pushed coins out in massive numbers, and that's exactly how dramatic errors slipped through. One of the most sought after is the 1993 doubled die obverse. Under magnification, doubling can be seen on Liberty and the date, especially the 1 and 9, in fine condition. Authenticated examples have sold in the $35,000 to $70,000 range. But when surfaces are clean and the doubling is strong, prices have surged past $150,000, shocking collectors who never expected it from a 1,990 seconds coin. But the real sleeper, the 1993 no FG reverse. On some 1993 Kennedy half dollars, the designer's initials beneath the eagle's tail feathers are completely missing. This isn't where it's a mint error caused by extreme die polishing. Most people never check for it. That's why these coins still turn up in collections unnoticed. In fine condition, verified, no FG examples have already crossed $120,000. And when eye appeal is strong, bidding has pushed them into the $250,000 to $400,000 range. And then there are the coins that seem almost impossible. A handful of 1993 Kennedy half dollars were struck on wrong planchets, including foreign blanks or experimental metal compositions. These coins often feel wrong the moment you hold them. The color may be off. The weight may not match. The sound, when dropped, can be dull or unusually sharp. When authenticated, these errors instantly jump into elite territory. Documented examples have reached $500,000 to $900,000, and unique pieces have quietly crossed the $1 million mark in private sales. So, how do you identify a potentially valuable 1993 Kennedy half dollar? Start with the basics. Even fine condition can be enough if the error is right. Look carefully for missing FG on the reverse. Use magnification to inspect Liberty and the date for doubling. Check the edge and weigh the coin. Any deviation from normal standards could be the key to a life-changing discovery. What makes some Kennedy half dollars valuable isn't age or silver content, it's rarity, overlooked errors, and the moment collectors finally realize what they're holding. And the 1993 issue proves that even coins from recent decades can quietly climb into 6- and 7-figure territory. And stay with me, because the next Kennedy half dollar doesn't just surprise collectors, it challenges everything they think they know about modern US coin values. Now, this is where the story turns serious, because what you're looking at right now is a 1967 Kennedy half dollar in extra fine, nearly new condition. And this is one of the most historically important coins in the entire series. 1967 sits right in the heart of America's silver transition. This Kennedy half dollar was struck in 40% silver, during a time when the US Mint was under extreme pressure. Coin shortages, public hoarding, and political tension forced the Mint to remove mint marks entirely. That decision alone created mystery and opportunity. And when a 1967 example survives in extra fine, almost new condition like this one, collectors lean in, look closely at the obverse. Kennedy's hair is sharply defined, especially above the ear. The cheek still has fullness, not the flat look of heavy circulation. Liberty is bold and complete, and the fields remain clean, with only light contact marks. This coin looks fresh, like it was pulled from circulation early and protected for decades. Turn it over and the eagle seals the deal. The wings show strong feather detail. The shield lines are crisp, and the stars are clear and well separated. Many 1967 halves suffer from weak strikes, so this level of sharpness immediately elevates its status. Now, here's the moment that changes everything. The 1967 Kennedy half dollar is famous for rare double die varieties, especially on the obverse. Under magnification, strong doubling can appear in Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. This is not machine doubling, it's bold, raise, and unmistakable. In circulated condition, these coins already command serious money, but in extra fine, nearly new condition like this, certified examples have reached $85,000 to $160,000. Exceptional pieces with blazing eye appeal have shocked the market, climbing past $300,000. But that's not even the headline. Some of the most valuable 1967 Kennedy half dollars are struck on wrong planchets. During the silver transition, planchet mix-ups were far more common than most people realize. A 1967 Kennedy struck on a silver planchet intended for another denomination instantly becomes a museum-level rarity. When authenticated, these coins don't just rise in value, they explode. High-profile examples have reached $500,000 to over $1.2 million, depending on metal content and condition. And then there are the special strike finish coins, because mint marks were removed and standard proof sets were suspended. Some 1967 Kennedy half dollars were struck with unusually sharp detail and smooth surfaces that resemble proofs, but they're not proofs. These special strikes are rare, and most were never recognized at the time. In extra fine to near new condition, these coins have sold for $250,000 to $600,000. Stunning even veteran collectors. So, how do you identify a potentially valuable 1967 Kennedy half dollar? Condition is key. Extra fine or better unlocks the real premiums. Check the coin's weight carefully. Silver errors often reveal themselves there. Use magnification to inspect the lettering for true doubling. Study the surfaces for an unusually sharp or satin-like finish. These small details are where fortunes hide. What makes some Kennedy half dollars valuable is history colliding with mistakes and survival. And the 1967 issue sits right at that crossroads. It's not just a coin, it's a snapshot of a nation under pressure, frozen in silver, and as unbelievable as this sounds, the next Kennedy half dollar takes us even higher, into territory where values don't just shock, they redefine what modern US coins are worth. Now, it's turned to a year almost no one expects, this 1979 Kennedy half dollar in extra fine condition, because this is where quiet coins start making very loud headlines. At first glance, the 1979 Kennedy half dollar feels routine. It's not silver, It's not old by most standards, and many people remember seeing these in circulation, but extra fine condition changes everything. Kennedy's portrait still shows strong definition. The hair above the ear is clearly separated, the cheek hasn't flattened out, and Liberty remains bold and complete. This coin didn't just survive circulation, it escaped it early. On the reverse, the eagle still commands attention. Feather details remain visible across the wings, the shield lines are intact, and the stars are clean. This matters because the late 1970s were plagued by worn dies and rushed production. Sharp detail from this year is already a clue that something special may be hiding, and now comes the shock. The U.S. Mint in 1979 was struggling with efficiency, not perfection. That opened the door to dramatic double die errors, and the 1979 double die obverse is one of the most powerful sleepers in the Kennedy series. Under magnification, doubling can appear on Liberty, the date, and In God We Trust. The letters look thick, almost shadowed, but the doubling is raised, not flat. In circulated condition, these coins already sell for $40,000 to $75,000. In extra fine condition like this, certified examples have reached $150,000 to $280,000, with exceptional eye appeal, pushing prices even higher. But collectors don't stop there. The 1979 No FG reverse is another variety that sends prices soaring. When the designer's initials beneath the eagle's tail feathers disappear due to heavy die polishing, rarity is born. Most people never flip the coin over to check, and that's why these still slip through collections unnoticed. In extra fine condition, verified No FG examples have sold for $220,000 to $420,000, and when bidding heats up, prices have crossed $600,000. And then there are the coins that break all expectations. A limited number of 1979 Kennedy half dollars were struck on wrong planchets, including foreign or experimental blanks. These coins often reveal themselves through subtle clues: unusual color, incorrect weight, or a strange sound when dropped. When authenticated by a major grading service, these pieces leap straight into elite territory. Top-tier examples have sold for $700,000 to over $1.3 million, becoming centerpieces in advanced collections. So, how do you identify a potentially valuable 1979 Kennedy half dollar? Condition comes first. Extra fine or better is essential. Inspect the reverse carefully for missing FG. Use magnification to study Liberty and the date for true doubling. Weigh the coin and examine the edge. Anything that feels off could be the clue that separates an everyday half dollar from a life-changing discovery. What makes some Kennedy half dollars valuable isn't silver or age, it's rarity created by mistakes and protected by condition. And the 1979 issue proves that even overlooked modern coins can quietly rise into 6- and 7-figure territory. And stay right here, because the next and final Kennedy half dollar takes us to the peak, the coin that closes this list with the most unbelievable value of all.